Hi everyone, welcome to today's drawing video of these cherries on a branch. I am drawing these using Prismacolor and Polychromos colored pencil on Strathmore Bristol Smooth Paper, and you can see me here just laying down some white pencil to make sure I get those highlights blocked in, and I was using a black light flashlight to assist me in being able to see where I place the highlights on the paper. Now I am coming through and laying down just the areas where I'm going to want the shadows for these cherries, and then coming through with a really dark gray pencil to darken up those shadows even further in places. Now you can see me coming through to block in the mid-tone colors, and I was using a combination of pencils for these cherries. I was using magenta from Polychromos and Prismacolor. I was using pomegranate from Prismacolor, and then a couple more Polychromos pencils, Madder and alizarin crimson. In the darkest shadow areas, I was using the red violet from Polychromos and black cherry from Prismacolor. And I just made sure that I went over layered and layered just to get some variation in the colors. Now you can see me blending with solvent, and you can see how the highlights are revealed. That's where I laid down the white pencil at the very beginning, and the solvent just basically pulls up the top layer of pencil and reveals those highlights that are underneath. Next, I'm coming through with an electric eraser to brighten those highlights up even further, and then working back over each of the cherries one more time, just following that same process in the same order. Basically, I'm darkening up the shadows, and then I'm going to come back through with the midtones. Those shadows look so dark right now, but once the leaves and the stems and that branch are drawn in around them, they make a lot more sense. So don't be afraid to go too dark in your shadows, because I'm looking at the final drawing now, and the shadows in the final drawing look completely normal, whereas here when the cherries are sitting there by themselves, they do look a little too dark. So now I'm starting to work on this branch, which was really fun to draw. I love drawing things like this that you can make a mistake on here. If I put a little line or a dot in the wrong place, it is not going to matter. So after all of the detail work I put into those cherries, it was nice to take a little break and just kind of play around with this branch. There's a lot of detail in the branch, but it's not stressful detail, because like I said, if you get it wrong, it's not going to hurt anything. In fact, if you make a wrong mark, if anything, it just adds to the texture and the character of that branch. I used mostly my gray pencils in this. I used several different combinations of warm and cool grays using the Polychromos and the Prismacolor. And now I'm going to go ahead and blend that out with Gamsol, as I always do. And there you can see it starts to look a little smeared as I get all of the pigment dissolved. And so I just need to come back through and sharpen up the detail, but it's worth it to me to go ahead and blend that out, because it dissolves the pigment and it takes away any of the graininess. I prefer the graininess to be there where I created it rather than just from the pencil. So you can skip the solvent on something like a branch like this, but typically we'll go ahead and do it. And now coming through to add these little stems that connect the cherries to the branch. These are actually really easy to draw. You don't need to put a lot of detail in them. The most important thing here is just to make sure that each stem goes to a cherry. You want to make sure that these all these little lines in here make sense. You don't want just a random line that's curved around and then it doesn't lead to anything. So just make sure that you have those cherry stems going to the correct cherry. And also you want to make sure that you have the cherry stems that are supposed to go underneath another stem. You want to pay attention to that a little bit. And you want some variation in value and color between the stems that are on top of each other or next to each other, just so that they don't completely blend together. You want to make sure that they're distinct from one another. And with the two lines that I'm drawing there, I'm being careful to make sure I'm keeping them parallel as they move up. So a lot of intricacy in those, but not a lot of detail to worry about. Just again, making sure that you've got each stem going to a cherry, and you should be fine. Here I'm starting to work on the leaf, and I basically followed the same pattern of laying down these pencils for all of these leaves. And the very first thing I did was to outline each of the leaves. Then I came through with the ivory Polychromos pencil. I made sure it was really sharp, and then I just indented the paper where I wanted the veins to go on these leaves. The veins in these leaves were very distinct, so I wanted to make sure they would stand out. So after I've indented the paper, then when I come over with the rest of my pencils, then nothing really sticks in those areas where those veins are. So there I'm doing that again, and yeah, now you can see as I lay that color down, it doesn't stick in those veins, so it's easy for me to see where I want to put the rest of my colors. I was using a lot of the muted colored greens in this, Kelly Green and Sap Green Light from Prismacolor. I was using Chrome Oxide Green from Polychromos. And then for some of the leaves that tended to be a little bit more olivey, a little more warm, I was using Prismacolor Olive Green and Polychromos Permanent Green Olive. So it sounds like a lot of colors, but it really wasn't for a drawing like this with 3 distinct areas. Here I'm coming through and just outlining each of the leaves. I was using the Polychromos Chrome Oxide Green to do that. Getting them all in, so many leaves on this one. And then there's that ivory pencil, and I'm going to go over all of the veins, and I did that with all of the leaves. I just decided to work on these all at the same time, just to, first of all, to make the tutorial that I was creating a little bit easier to follow along with, to make it a little bit more of a step-by-step. But it also speeds things along a little bit for me if I'm working on just one color at a time or 2 or 3 colors at a time. Here I'm coming through and adding the shadows everywhere, and now finally I'm coming through with the midtones on these leaves. But the other thing that it does is it helps to maintain some consistency throughout the piece. If I just work leaf by leaf, it's easy by the time I get to some of the last leaves that I'm not exactly doing the same thing that I did on the first leaves, which can cause some inconsistencies in color and value a little bit. So just was helpful to work on them all together. And now you can see me really working through using only the Kelly Green and Sap Green Light and Chrome Oxide Green in these first layers. It comes together pretty quickly after I have my base layers down. And then at this point I added in some of the olive greens. Still haven't blended with Gamsol. I just decided I wanted to get a little bit more pigment on these. If this is moving way too fast and you want to be able to watch me draw this a slower version and hear me talk through each section, you can check out my Patreon. I have a 6-part tutorial for these cherries over there now. And you can see how just adding another layer of pencil really just starts to help everything come together a little bit. Made sure to include a lot of contrast here so you can see me leaving some of these areas really nice and light. And now I'm ready to come through and blend everything out with the solvent. Using a Royal & Langnickel No. 2 filbert brush there. And once that dries, I can come through and add my second layers. Slowing down here a little bit, I brought in a black Polychromos pencil just so that I could get some sharp detail in the darkest shadow areas. And then also using a color called Gray Green Light from Prismacolor to really lighten some of the lightest areas on these leaves. I really enjoy drawing leaves. In fact, I'm planning to do a few more pieces this fall that will be just leaves. So I'm looking forward to that. And that is about it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. And I will see you next week with another video. Bye, everybody.